In this video, we will be discussing Apple's iconic commercial 1984 and its impact on advertising, the NFL, pop culture, and, of course, technology. The ad served as a turning point for Apple and is now considered a masterpiece in advertising. With its dystopian theme and remarkable production values, the commercial has inspired a generation of marketers and has become a case study in the power of event marketing. The 1984 commercial inspired other advertisers by demonstrating the power of storytelling and the impact of taking risks in advertising. The ad's cinematic quality and use of cultural references helped to set a new standard for TV commercials, encouraging advertisers to create more memorable and emotionally engaging content. It also inspired a trend of using the Super Bowl as a platform for launching high-profile ad campaigns. Additionally, the 1984 commercial showed that a brand could use its advertising to make a bold statement about its values and beliefs, and that doing so could help it stand out in a crowded marketplace. The commercial is often cited as an example of how advertising can be used to create a cultural moment, and it continues to influence the way advertisers approach their craft to this day. The commercial aired only once, on January 22, 1984, during the third quarter of Super Bowl XVIII. However, it made a huge impact, launching the phenomenon of event marketing, where a high-visibility commercial garners a lot of free promotion. 1984 inaugurated the trend of showcasing commercials on the Super Bowl and brought consumers into the stores. The impact of a Super Bowl commercial on sales can depend on many factors, including the quality and effectiveness of the ad, the product being advertised, and the overall market conditions. However, Super Bowl commercials can generate a significant amount of brand exposure and buzz, which can increase brand recognition and potentially lead to increased sales over time. The average cost for a 30-second commercial during the 1984 Super Bowl was around $368,000. In comparison, the average cost for a 30-second commercial during the 2022 Super Bowl was around $6.5 million. When accounting for inflation, the 1984 cost of $368,000 would be equivalent to around $934,000 in 2022 dollars. This means that the cost of a Super Bowl commercial has increased by around 600% when adjusted for inflation over the past few decades. The commercial opens with a droning voice vibrating through a science fiction dystrophic scene, which is held in dark, blue and gray tones. We see passionless, bald, and almost robotic people processing in unanimity through a long tunnel with telescreens on the wall. Then out of nowhere, a young woman appears, dressed like an athlete, in a colorful sports outfit that forms a strong contrast to the dull, gray environment surrounding her. She carries a maul and is being chased by uniformed guards. And then she runs up to the screen, hurdles a cock with a heroic oink, and shatters the television image of the said dictator named Big Brother. As the screen explodes, bathing the amazed audience in the light of freedom, a voiceover announces, "On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce the Macintosh, and you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984. The ad was an allusion to George Orwell's novel, 1984, which described a dystopian future ruled by a televised Big Brother. The commercial's purpose was to brand Apple's new product, Macintosh, with an ideology of individualism and empowerment. At that time, personal computers were tools invented for specific tasks, and their perception was different from today. With Macintosh diverting its image against the norm, the people's attention was acquired with a bold ad set up by Apple. The first electronic general-purpose digital computer, called the ENIAC, was built during World War II from 1943 to 1945 by the United States government. It was primarily designed to help with artillery trajectory calculations for the war effort. So in a sense, the first computer was made for the government. With Apple dropping their famous commercial, it's not hard to see why they wanted the computer in the hands of everyday people, and not just in government control. Apple's strategy was to distinguish themselves by fighting conformity and asserting individualism. It was a definite asset for Apple to choose to air the commercial during the most watched television event in the United States, the Super Bowl. The commercial made a bold move in citing George Orwell's novel, which could have been misinterpreted and ended up frightening the audience with futuristic dystopian themes. Fortunately, the ad was considered as radical, innovative, and positively stunning. The Super Bowl is the most watched sports event in the United States. The margin by which it is the most watched can vary depending on the year, but it typically garners significantly more viewers than other sporting events. For example, in 2021, the Super Bowl was watched by an estimated 96.4 million viewers, while the second most watched sporting event, the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship game, had an estimated 16.9 million viewers. Steve Jobs was heavily involved in the production of the iconic 1984 Apple commercial, which aired during the Super Bowl 17 and 8 in 1984. He reportedly considered the ad to be a major turning point in Apple's history, helping to establish the company's brand identity and set it apart from competitors in the personal computer market. In a documentary called Memory and Imagination, New Pathways to the Library of Congress by Mark Romanek, Jobs explained his vision for the ad, saying, "The whole point of the commercial was to stop the momentum of this Big Brother image that IBM had, and to really announce that Apple was different and came from different roots and was really a different way of looking at computers." Jobs also reportedly said, "It is the best ad ever made," and he continued to reference the commercial throughout his career as a defining moment in Apple's history. The commercial's success lies in the production value and the amazing execution by bringing in the best people in the industry. The commercial's unique style, inspired by a big-budget blockbuster film, had never been seen before. Apple's 1984 commercial is said to be the greatest commercial ever made by not only Steve Jobs, but many others. It had a profound impact on advertising and popular culture, inspiring marketers and advertisers to think outside the box. The commercial's theme of individualism and empowerment has continued to inspire people to this day. Bill Gates is not reported to have made any specific comments about the 1984 Apple commercial. It's worth noting that at the time of the commercial's release, Microsoft and Apple were not yet direct competitors in the personal computer market, so it's possible that Gates did not have a strong reaction to it either way. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates worked closely together in the early days of personal computing, but they eventually had a falling out over a variety of issues. One of the primary reasons for their split was the development of graphical user interfaces, GUIs, for personal computers. Apple had been developing the Macintosh, which used a GUI, while Microsoft was developing Windows, which also used a similar interface. In 1985, Microsoft released Windows 1.0, which was heavily inspired by the Macintosh's interface, and Apple filed a lawsuit against Microsoft for copyright infringement. The lawsuit dragged on for years, and during that time, Jobs and Gates became increasingly antagonistic towards each other. Steve Jobs, the co-founder and former CEO of Apple Inc., died on October 5, 2011, due to complications from pancreatic cancer. There are several conspiracy theories surrounding Steve Jobs' death, but it is important to note that there is no credible evidence to support any of these claims. Some of the most common conspiracy theories include the cancer treatment conspiracy. Some people claim that Jobs' cancer was cured, but that he was killed by medical professionals or pharmaceutical companies to prevent him from sharing the cure with the world. The Apple conspiracy. Some people believe that Jobs' death was part of a conspiracy by Apple to take control of his patents and intellectual property, the faked death conspiracy. Some people claim that Jobs faked his own death to escape the public eye and live a life of anonymity. The Macintosh was named after the type of apple, the favorite fruit of Jeff Raskin, who was one of the original team members of the Macintosh project at Apple. Raskin was a computer scientist and a human-computer interface expert who envisioned an easy-to-use, affordable personal computer for the masses. The Macintosh was a tribute to his vision and work on the project. The famous Apple logo with a bite taken out of it was designed in 1977 by Rob Janoff, who was working for the advertising agency Regis McKenna at the time. According to Janoff, the idea behind the logo was to make it simple, memorable, and easily recognizable, and he chose to use an apple as a reference to the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible. The bite was added to the apple for scale, so that people would be able to tell that it was an apple and not a cherry or other fruit, and also to give the logo a human touch. Here are some things that you may not have known about the Super Bowl and technology. The first Super Bowl broadcast in high definition was in 2000, but it wasn't until 2009 that the entire game was broadcast in HD. Super Bowl 47 in 2013 was the first Super Bowl to be streamed live online, and it set a record for being the most watched live stream of a sports event ever at the time. The Super Bowl is one of the biggest drivers of TV sales in the US, as many people buy new TVs specifically for the event. Super Bowl 53 in 2019 was the first Super Bowl to use 5G technology for some of its broadcasts and replays. In recent years, the Super Bowl has become a testing ground for new technologies, such as augmented reality and virtual reality, with companies using the event to showcase their latest advancements in these areas. According to what we could find, there are several new technologies being showcased during the 2023 Super Bowl. One of these is the AQ Mental Health app, which has produced a Super Bowl fanxiety tracker that allows fans to monitor their stress levels in real time. Additionally, technology innovations that make football safer are also being featured, such as the Q-Collar, a device intended to protect athletes' brains during head impact. It is also worth noting that big-name advertisers such as Netflix and Google are paying as much as $7 million for a 30-second spot during the Super Bowl, seeking to capture the attention of the roughly 100 million viewers who tune in each year. Here are some thought-provoking questions for you. How has the 1984 commercial impacted advertising? What did the commercial symbolize? What role did event marketing play in the success of the commercial? What was the significance of citing George Orwell's novel 1984? How has the commercial impacted Apple's branding and image? Thank you for watching Science Maniatics. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.